teacher. He was a YMCA type. As a matter of fact, I don't think that basketball was something that really was a priority with him. They found a peach basket and put it on the balcony, and didn't even take the bottom out initially. They drilled a hole in the bottom of the basket and used a stick to punch the ball out when it went through. The sport that James Naismith invented, Dr. Naismith has invented, was nothing like the sport of today. Matter of fact, I'm sure that he would turn over in his grave if he saw what happened to the game of basketball. In Madison Square Garden, when 10,000 people were watching the ball game and 10 people were playing it, he said it should be just the opposite. So exercise was his big concern, and physical conditioning, which is, of course, very admirable. You'd have to say that, in my mind at least, that Phog Allen was really sort of the father of basketball coaches. He's the guy initially who really kind of tried to make a science out of it, and developed plays, and talked about strategies, and talked about winning and losing. Then Phog, in his very last game, last game that he coached was played in Phog Allen Fieldhouse against my K-State team, and we beat them for the conference championship. And that was his last game. I always, in some ways, felt a little badly about that. But Phog just took it in stride. He said, well, it's just another game, and congratulated me. And he called me Texaco. And I had a very good relationship with him, and I liked the guy. But I think he was ahead of his time in coaching, that's for sure. When I went back to K-State from Marquette, and then Chamberlain was recruited to Kansas, and of course everybody in the conference then said, well, they practically conceded the 3-year championships to Kansas. Freshmen were not eligible for varsity ball at the time. But I went over to see their freshman varsity game. They played it in old Holk Auditorium, which is a terrible facility on the University of Kansas campus, because everybody was talking about Chamberlain, this big guy. So I went over to scout the game, to see the game, and I actually saw this, and I think to this day people don't believe it. But he wasn't at the top of the circle, but he was about 3 steps behind it on a free throw, and he ran to the free throw line, took off, and dunked the ball. And in the rules at that time, you could. And so I think I could have been very definitely instrumental, because I was chairman of the basketball coaches rules recommendation committee, and I explained to the coaches at the convention what I saw, and said that something's going to have to be done so that we, don't have guys getting to the point where guys can dunk the ball on the free throw line. Another one was that they had an out of bound plays where they threw it over the backboard from out of bounds, and he just was right in front of the basket, and he'd go up and stuff it. So I told the coaches at the convention, I said, I don't know about you coaches, but I'm going to put chicken wire above my basket. And they changed that rule. And Wilt, in his book, I don't think he even knew my name. He said that little coach at Kansas State tried to get rules in to outlaw to affect my game. So, well, we wore about what they wear today, except the pants or the shorts, of course, were much shorter. They're all above my knees considerably. And it's the same equipment, but the Converse shoe, of course, was the most popular shoe, and about the only one that most people wore, in white and black. You could get them in either color, but the sole of the shoe was special. It really had a nice sole. It was very it was sticky. You could really stop with it, and it was a light shoe, very light shoe. Compared to the day's shoes, it was amazing. but it was flat. It was a pretty flat shoe and consequently a little hard on your feet. It was a true leather ball, pigskin or whatever you want, and it had a lace on it. It had a lace on it with a bladder inside. And of course it was a little heavier than the modern ball and pretty easy to handle because of the leather, the feel, but it wouldn't dribble very well. Didn't dribble too well. It was a little harder to shoot with. It was sometimes it was kind of lopsided in a way. Kind of it'd get out of shape sort of on occasions. But Johnny Wooden's high pass, high post, basic cut offense, the basic cut off the high post, and then the things that he did out of that, very similar in many respects as far as the basic principles are concerned to the triangle. Well, I wrote the book on the triangle. I used it in 1947, and I'm not sure when Coach Wooden picked up on it on his high post offense. UCLA cut, everybody calls it, the basic cut. We used it all my years of coaching at K-State. And I wrote the book in '60, '61, and of course I've got the high post series in there. It's a high post man comes up, and it's the basic cut, and then we form a triangle out of that. Right. Just another way to get into the triangle. He didn't go to the triangle so much. He spaced the floor and used Sidney Wicks, for example, on the low post weak side. Hank Iba at Oklahoma State, you couldn't drive the lane on them. They collapsed to the extent that, and if you tried to penetrate from the wing with the basketball, you're going to run over a lot of people, a lot of players. They just wouldn't let you penetrate on that. So what I did out of the triangle, I developed the concept because they're dropping off the wing and giving you an opportunity to start your penetration, and then they close in from the weak side, fanning the top of the circle guard away, like you're seeing today all the time, fanning them away, and then when they help, actually they're vulnerable to the pitch and the shot. And we had to develop that particular series of options in order to combat the way Hank Iba played his defense. And that's kind of how a lot of things in the triangle offense evolved, is reacting to defenses. A meticulous guy, really always well dressed. That's the thing that always impressed me about him. Very well dressed, and with a little tie. And in fact, several of those old-time coaches were that way. They were really concerned about how they looked, and much more so than some of the coaches this day and age. I often have to laugh at Phil Jackson because he looks less like a coach than anybody I've ever seen, even during the process of a practice session.